returns and dead orders happen every day. So that means returns and dead orders have to be put away every day. And you have to be disciplined. You gotta just get after it. And the culture of, well, I'll get to that later. I'll get to that tomorrow. I'll get to that next week turns into next month. And then now you're tripping over yourself and you got a yard full of crap.
Put that coffee down.
Creators are leaders. Be careful what kind of leaders you're producing here.
Helen, we're both in sales. Let me tell you why I suck as a salesman.
They realized that to be in power, you didn't need guns or money or even numbers. You just needed the will to do what the other guy wouldn't.
I'm not leaving. The show goes on.
Well, hello there, friend. Welcome to the Construction Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Bradley Hartman. And on this show, we bring you ideas and insights from construction leaders across the country every single week to help you lead more effectively. This episode is brought to you by the Simple Sales Pipeline web application. If you are not organizing and valuing the pipeline of every single salesperson you have right now, as we head into these recessionary times, you are flying blind. And if you believe that sales drives the business, there is absolutely no reason you should not be organizing and valuing your individual sales pipelines for every single rep, every single month. You're thinking, I know, a CRM, it's expensive and hard and takes too long. No, it's not. And it's not because it's not a CRM. What you're looking for is the Simple Sales Pipeline. We can take any rep in under 30 minutes. And if they have their accounts ready, we can organize and value their sales pipeline. And we built this ourselves based on our experiences with you, working with builders, working with GCs, working with dealers and distributors. We've made this for our construction community. You can check it out at thesimplesalespipeline.com. I am thrilled to bring to you today my conversation with the very alliterative Barrett Burt, the general manager at Ganahl Lumber in Anaheim, California. On one of my recent trips to the West Coast, I met up with Barrett and he very generously gave me a tour of their location in Torrance, California. If you ever get the chance, you have to check out this facility. It is incredible. I'm not going to go into all the details why, but a fantastic retail experience and a really unique and productive yard. There was so much about this that I loved. Afterwards, we went in, we talked to some of his team, and then him and I got together to talk about his experience. And he has worked at Ganahl for going on 35 years. That will tell you something about Barrett as an individual, and obviously about Ganahl as an organization. We talk about recruiting and developing talent. We talk about hiring ahead of need. We talk about finding and learning from a mentor, as well as identifying and articulating a career path for the ambitious youth of today, and so much more. I had a blast with Barrett. When I was thinking about interviewing him, I talked to someone who knew him well, and they described him as just an incredibly intelligent and generous human being. Just really, really nice. And that's what I got. I really enjoyed my time with him, and I think that will come through here. So in addition to being a nice, kind guest, he has a ton of insights, and you're going to learn a lot from this. I'm thrilled to share this conversation with you with Mr. Barrett Burt, General Manager, Ganahl Lumber in Torrance, California. As always, thank you for listening. Mr. Barrett Burt, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thrilled you're here. Let's start. Actually, I should say thrilled I'm here. I came to see you. You gave me an incredible tour of your location here in Torrance, California. Let me get a burning question off to you first.
Fire away.
I'm a big fan of alliteration. Your middle name, is it also a B? Is it like Barry? Is it Bradley or no?
C as in Carl.
Okay. All right.
However, I've got 4 older brothers, Brian, Bradley, Brett, and Bart.
There's a Bart Burt?
Yes.
Do any of these... Wait,
he's super annoying.
Do any of them have a B in their middle name?
No.
Okay.
No. There's no triple Bs.
There's no triple B. If it was Barrett Bradley Burt,
that would
the
be
third
ridiculous.
or something, It would have totally derailed the entire podcast, but these are the hard-hitting questions our audience listeners need to know.
Go.
That's bananas. I'll leave it at that. So take me back to when the young Barrett Burt was 12 years old.
Oh, geez.
Where were you, and what did you think you would be doing circa early 2023?
Well, 2023 was never coming when you're 12 years old. 1981, that's not going to happen. So Catholic school, gosh, what grade are you in at 12?
Probably sixth.
Yeah, that's sixth grade, right? Oh, yeah. So the girls are definitely on your mind. You don't want to go to church. You know, what? And you're still riding a bike. I mean, come on.
You? Put me,
Anaheim, California.
Okay. All right. I do know there's one prominent location there. How far were you from Disneyland?
Disneyland was just, probably 2-3 miles down the road.
Okay.
So
All right.
Fireworks at night, so you could hear the.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
What were you into? What did you think you were going to be? Were you thinking, I want to be a professional baseball player, or did you want to follow in your parents' footsteps? What did you think you'd be doing when you were going to grow up? Did you have an idea of what your profession might have been?
No. There was no thought into that. You're just hanging out with your buddies.
Hanging out with your buddies.
Yeah.
So how did you end up being seduced into the lumber, building material, construction industry at large? How'd that happen?
Okay. So oddball jobs through high school.
For instance, what's the oddballest job that you had?
Well, I started at the old folks' home being a waiter and then a dishwasher. That's tough being a dishwasher.
It was a dishwasher at the old person's home?
So there's a restaurant inside the facility, and you're running a restaurant. So I was really good there. And so I got a really good job at Marie Callender's being a busboy. That was pretty cool, getting cash tips.
There you go.
Know? So
I can only imagine any job in an old person's home will help teach you the meaning of empathy.
Oh, that job was brutal. Man.
Oh, I can only imagine.
And that was when minimum wage was $3.35 an hour. But it went a long way back then.
Yeah.
It was early 80s. So
yeah.
But then another oddball job was I sold souvenirs at Angel Stadium.
Oh, all right.
And that's a commission-based sales job. There's my first sales job, commission-based. And you had to come in and you had to plop down $20 to buy your own souvenirs. And then you get to go out and you get to hawk them. This is the time when the Angels they sucked. And you're the new guy. And so what do you get view level right field.
Okay. Yeah.
There's nobody up there. There's nothing. You've got this basket full of stuff to sell and there's nobody to sell to.
And what is this? Hats, t-shirts, foam fingers? Like, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're plopping down your own money. And again, how old are you at this point?
Oh, you know what? You had to plop down your own money for change because you needed change. You didn't have to buy the souvenirs. My memory's bad, but how old was I? I was 16.
No kidding. All right.
Yeah.
So take me back to the craft of selling at this point. What was your angle? How did you break through? Because, by the way, the Angels, I believe they've sucked forever. But if they struggled back then.
Oh, stop it now. I am a Dodger fan, though, by the way. Almost forever. Oh, gosh, this is funny. So I guess I was like many salespeople in the industry is you learn to be a good farmer. So you wanted to have a good shift against the Red Sox, and you definitely wanted to be on the field where the low-hanging fruit are. There's the people with money, and there's a lot of people. So you're just trying to figure out what the heck you're going to sell. Is it a program or a foam finger? I don't know. I can't remember, but I was not good at that job. And you just had to yell, souvenirs, you know.
You got to own it.
You got to own it.
All right, so you're doing odd jobs. When did this industry come on your radar?
Okay, so graduate high school. I'm jobless at the time. So I got no job. I'm not going to school. And boy, do I feel like a loser. So my buddy, his brother, also a good friend of mine, worked at Ganahl, Anaheim.
Okay.
So I go over there. I knew that he was going to get home about 3:00 in the afternoon. So I go over there to hang out. My schedule was wide open. So I just go over to hang out. And he comes home and I say, hey, Chad, what do you think? You think you can help me get a job over there? And he just looks at me and he goes, yeah. And he walks over to the phone that's on the wall. And they were fancy family. It was a push button phone.
Big time.
So he dialed.
Rotary out. No, we got buttons now. That's great.
He calls and he hands me the receiver and he says, ask for Ralph. And I'm holding the phone and I just go, yeah, I'm trying to get a hold of Ralph, and hold please. And I get transferred and Ralph picks up the phone and I fumble across, I'm a friend of Chad's, and tell him I'm looking for a job. Ralph says, hey, come down tomorrow. Let me meet you and we'll talk about a job. I go down there, place is hopping. There's all kinds of stuff. It was super intimidating. The forklifts and just all the people and all that.
Yeah.
I don't have a clue what I'm looking at. I just know I'm looking at a lot of stuff.
A lot of action.
And Ralph, we talked for, 5 minutes maybe. He says, when can you start? I said, right away. And he says, when could you go take a physical? And I said, right away. He goes, okay, go down to this address and take a physical and then come back. So it's now 9:30 in the morning. I'm pulling up to this clinic and take a physical and drive back. And by 10:30, I'm loading trucks.
So you ended up, by the way, Fullerton College mascot is
Hornets.
The Hornets.
Yeah.
All right. Good to know. So you went back to school. So were you continuing to work while you did this?
Yeah. So I was working part-time.
Okay.
And put together a deal with Ralph, which was, hey, I want to really have my school schedule.
Yep.
And I want to really, work around that. So I will close. I'll be your closer.
Okay.
And I'll work every Saturday. And he's like, deal. So I was doing 25, 30 hours a week, going to school, and got to get the classes.
That's awesome.
So
cool. So fast forward to me. You shared the story about opening the Pasadena location.
Yeah.
Greenfield opportunity. Had been a minute since 1927, which Ganahl had done this. So now you're going to go from a material supplier to a construction manager. Talk to me about the culture, or what was it that gave you the confidence and gave the organization the confidence to give someone young and green, and obviously you hadn't done it before. Walk me through that to kind of give you that leadership opportunity to something pretty unique.
Well, I had trudged through a lot of different positions at Ganahl leading up to that opportunity. So I think about the way Ganahl lumber was back then and the way it is today. And I'm not sure if it's more difficult to have a career at Ganahl back then, or is it more difficult now? So and my example is back then, an opportunity would come up, but it was very few and far between when an opportunity would come up. The good part about that is you were only going against maybe 2 or 3 people to get that job. Today at Ganahl, there's lots of opportunities coming up, but there could be dozens of people that are going after that job.
Your head count just at this location, you said, is over 150?
156 here today, yeah.
156.
Yeah.
So, and that's just, obviously, one location.
It's one location. And given the way our locations are, they're pretty close to each other. So we have people that, like you met people here today that have worked in 2 or 3 different locations. So yeah, that's cool.
It's incredible. So walk me through, who was it in the organization that bestowed on you this honor, and maybe walk me through that story of what, I think it was Peter, what Peter shared with you when you were out there on the site, acknowledging that I don't really know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, so that's fast forwarding. So 2010, 2011, we're building the Pasadena store. It was a car dealership. And so it's a major remodel. Mm-hmm. I mean, we left a couple of walls and everything else changed, right? So we got architects, we've got our builder. There was a lot of decisions made before I got there. And there were pretty easy decisions, like the footprint of where the buildings are going to go and so forth. Those were decided because there was, I shouldn't say we left one wall. We left quite a bit standing. That I got that wrong. there was a lot of buildings that we just moved into. But anyway, building something, I'd never done anything like that in my past. And there's a lot of decisions that I got to make as a operator. Like, how's we going to run a business out of this car dealership that's a lumberyard from, how are we going to move all this stuff around? And so I didn't have a clue what I was doing. Talking to Peter, he knows that I don't have a clue. So he comes to the site and we're standing there and I'm asking him a lot of questions and he knows a lot of the answers are just an opinion.
Yeah.
But I was confused and he knew it. And he looked at me and said, "Hey, don't worry. You only got to do one thing." I'm like, "Okay, what?" And he goes, "Yeah, I go, "Okay, so what do you mean one thing? What's the one thing?" And he goes, "Well, you just have to build the best one." And then he laughed. And it was really funny for him because he knew he was not helping me. But he was trying to raise the bar and he was trying to get me to think big. And then he did jump into the specifics because I was going, and I remember I was like, "I think I'm going to put all the moldings and stuff over here." And he's like, "Well, where would a customer's truck be?" And I'd say right there. And he goes, "Well, okay, why wouldn't there be a wall there?" And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean a wall?" He goes, "Yeah, well, wouldn't you want all your finished products to be out of the elements of being outside and the dust and the, all the forklift debris and all that stuff?" I'm like, "Well, yeah." He goes, "Well, then you need to put a wall there." I'm like, "I can do that?" So he was really helping me get unstuck.
Yeah.
And so that was fun.
Well, and I think we'll have to come back here at another point in time with a videography crew to capture that. But my guess would be the culture of, we have a new location. We're going to do something new here. We just got to make this the best.
Yeah.
This place, for a whole bunch of reasons, from the parking that's on top to the glue lambs that are throughout and just the footprint here and the whole tour I got, it seems to me that credo of, yeah, if you're going to do this one here in Torrance, you just got to make this one the best.
Yep.
How well is that defined in the culture here that if we're going to do something new, hey, we're going to make it the best? Because on a certain point, there's probably a risk if we take any aspect of the business, if we're going to do something new or we're going to update it, if we make it the best, there's probably some areas where that might lead us into trouble. But is that part of the culture? And does that just kind of seep through? Or does it continue to be a message that comes down from leadership?
There's always been a really good mindset of long-term payoff. So where are we going to maximize this investment? And Peter's saying, you just build the best one. Well, since we built Pasadena, there's been a number of others that have been built, and each one becomes the best one. And I love that because he's like, wait, just because you did it once doesn't mean that it could never, ever improve. It can always get better, right? We always hear that. And we've learned from building different facilities on, oh yeah, that didn't work out the way I thought it was. And we share and try and learn those efficiencies. So, I mean, I think this place looks pretty cool. It's a biased opinion. It looks pretty cool, but from a functionality, it's awesome. There's so much thought that's put into the layout and just for traffic flow and holding capacity. And there's a ton of room for growth. That's also very cool. So,
yeah, well, I think you gave me a little context into kind of this idea of continuous improvement, but also, and I think maybe how you operate as a leader. This place had been opened, had been successful. You were given the keys to this 18-acre Ferrari, so to speak. Can you walk me through some of the questions, the simple questions you asked when you were realizing that while there's a larger footprint here, there was inventory that was kind of piling up and it was kind of cramping certain lanes of traffic. And you were asking some very simple questions, sounds like over and over again. Can you give context to that story?
Yeah, that's going back to the early days of knowing the day-to-day in the trenches of moving product and what customers expect. And remembering when you were in that position, what you liked to do in your job and what you didn't like to do and what your coworkers liked to do and what they didn't want to do, which was the same thing, right? And what you and your coworkers do when the boss goes home for the day, which is a lot less. So you remember all those things. And here, when I got here, the place was jumping. It was doing so great. The numbers looked great. But there were some inefficiencies, and I kind of caught it at the perfect storm. So it was kind of low-hanging fruit. But something that we don't like to do as lumberyard operators is when an order gets canceled, we don't like to address that. So there it is.
Fair to say.
There it is. It's built. It's ready to go. And the job gets delayed and it's dead. So you just leave it, right? Well,
pretty much.
Yeah, that's what operators do.
Work around it.
So those were my simple questions to the operations managers, was going around and going, okay, what is that? It's pretty simple. There it is. It's got a ticket on it and it's got a date.
Yeah.
And it's 6 months old. And you're going, why?
Yep.
And boy, you do that over and over and over again. And then really preaching. And I've got a great yard manager and he fully understands it. When you're doing this type of volume, or if even a smaller yard or a bigger yard, it doesn't matter. Returns and dead orders happen every day. So that means returns and dead orders have to be put away every day. And you have to be disciplined. You got to just get after it. And the culture of, well, I'll get to that later. I'll get to that tomorrow. I'll get to that next week, turns into next month. And then now you're tripping over yourself and you got a yard full of crap.
Yeah. Well, I think what stood out to me is there's not anyone listening who can't find value in some of these simple questions of, what's that? Why is that there? How long has it been there? Like, it's part of human nature. It's just part of how biological systems work. After time, crap just builds up. And if someone's not there just asking these simple questions, and I think that simplicity and the clarity comes from, sometimes it's not these next level MBA type questions. It's the most obvious ones,
Fundamentals.
Yeah.
Just super fundamentals. That was fun that I've had the last year. So
that's good. All right. I'm going to read to you something that is on your LinkedIn profile. And I want you to maybe share a little bit on why this is here and how it serves you. So it says, General Manager, August 1988 to present, 34 years and 5 months. I started with Ganahl Lumber back in the summer of 1988. I've experienced and enjoyed many different positions at Ganahl Lumber and currently the general manager of our South Bay location. We are growing, which means many opportunities exist and opportunities for advancement. Please contact me if you are curious about joining Ganahl or anything industry related. I would be happy to share what I know that might help you. Sincerely, Barrett. You wrote a letter to all of humanity.
Yeah.
When basically on LinkedIn, they basically says like, who are you and what's your deal? You wrote a letter. Why?
Oh, I want to talk to people. When you're in a market where hiring is difficult, you want to be attractive. Yeah. You want to be, I want to work at that place and I want to work for that person, not necessarily me, because it could be one of the other managers here, but yeah, you're just trying to recruit, the gloves are off.
Well, it's funny when I knew of you, we were on a couple emails regarding a past event for the WCLBMA. And I saw your name and I saw I could tell you were generous, but you were very candid with some of the feedback you gave on this topic. And then more recently, I read this and I just went to a colleague who shall remain nameless for this conversation. But I said, so what's Barrett's deal? I said, and I sent him a screenshot of this. I'm like, and he's like, oh, that's him. He's like, don't over or underthink it. Like, that's how he feels. He wants to help people and he would just write a letter. That's exactly what he would say. And I'm like, I don't know why, but I found this fascinating. You can look at 1,000 people on their LinkedIn profile. None of them have written just like a candid letter that says, hey, I want to help you in any way I can. By the way, I'd also like to potentially hire you. How often do people take you up on this offer to, I would be happy to share what I know that might help you?
Very rare. Yeah. It's very rare. I'll interview candidates for all different types of jobs. And I always end it with, okay, give them a chance to ask questions.
Sure.
And that tells a lot about where they are in the process of this hiring process, what kind of caliber of a candidate that we have. And I always end it with, hey, if you think of something later you want to ask me, or just something that you're curious about, call me. Very rare does that candidate call. Mm-hmm. And to me, I think I'm just teeing it up for them. Like, hey, I'm throwing a fastball right down the middle.
Yes.
You get to hit it over the fence right now. Yeah. But they very rarely take that. Doesn't happen very often. So,
well, I love it. But I also think my thought process would be, say I was interviewing here and I realize I'm going to be meeting with you. My question would be is, when I meet you in person, will you come across in the same way or different than you come across here? And it's been enjoyable for me to talk to you. And I'm like, hey, and kind of exactly what our colleague said is like, hey, what you see is what you get. This is how he is. Let's talk about talent here, because you talked about recently identifying talent, reaching out to them, bringing them from places that they were probably happy to work with to bring them on the team, knowing that you did not have a position for them. This idea of hiring ahead of need, I think it sounds smart. It sounds something like we should do. And then all of a sudden we hit some sort of economic territory where all of a sudden this is a terrible idea, when at the same time we all know we're in the talent business. So walk me through from a kind of a leadership level, how you think about attracting and bringing people in when there is uncertainty about where exactly they're going to sit on the bus.
Well, yeah, there's absolutely a gamble there. You're talking with these people and you think they're going to be high quality, but you don't really know these people until you're in the trenches together side by side for 6 months or however long. That's when you get to know somebody. But sometimes you come across candidates and you just go, okay, this background is too good. We've been a little bit lucky being able to attract some of these people. And I've done 2 recently, and it's worked out fabulous. But they were smart. These 2 candidates, I'll give them credit. They were smart enough to go, all right, the team that I'm on is not as strong as Team Ganahl. I hope that doesn't sound arrogant. I just think we have the best team. And after a lot of hours of conversation with these candidates, then they agreed. And I know they agreed because their behaviors were, they quit their other job and they came aboard, and I put together a plan of, hey, here's what I want to show you. And basically what I did is just the walk that we took earlier, Bradley, of just walking around the facility. I really just did that and showed them and said, hey, I'll show you how to drive this thing. You want to learn how to drive it? I'll show you how to drive it. Fire away, man. Go for it. I'll give you that chance. But in turn, they've got to get to know the people, the systems, and then they got to start putting points on the scoreboard. And those points could be any type of thing, depending on what their background is. If it's sales, then okay, then put some sales on the scoreboard, right? And then they got to go find that job. Now, these are 2 gentlemen that are looking for management positions because that's their expertise. So got to get them in that right seat. And, I'm super confident that we will. But I give them credit too. They got to kind of take a leap of faith and go, I'm going to trust this guy. He's going to pay me, but he's not really giving me a job.
Right.
And so that's definitely a leap of faith on their part. So it's going to work out well. It's pretty cool.
So Barrett, as we were walking around, you were kind of showing me some of the different metrics you guys use and continue to find different ways to really understand what the scoreboard is and how you guys are improving. Can you walk me through from a leadership standpoint on where metrics kind of fit in to what is obviously a very people-centric culture? Because sometimes I've seen in poor examples, or where companies run into trouble or we start losing talent, is we just overly rely on these metrics to give us an understanding of what we're doing, as opposed to just talking to the people and the products and the processes and how we all fit together to make this happen. So can you walk me through kind of how you guys think about introducing new metrics and how that fits into kind of your day-to-day leadership?
Yeah, great question. And boy, it is in the day-to-day leadership. So I'll try not to go on a tangent here because there's a lot of moving parts. So I'll describe, we have what we call our will call pit stop
Perfect example. Yes.
systems. And so if you think of a race car, think of Formula One going around that track, and Checo is going to come in for a pit stop, and boy, that team is ready. And Checo's going to only be there for 2.4 seconds. And boy, those tires are there, and the whole thing happens. So what we've taken that mentality and we put it into the will call system. We know our customers are coming to pick up that order. So we want to be 100% completely ready. And then we measure it. So customer comes in, we have a pit boss that greets that customer, gets their name, and has an app in his hand. So think of it could be, a lot of the guys like the phone one, but I think the iPad one is a little bit easier to read. But
This is a custom built in-house app.
Custom built in-house app. And he goes, hey, Mr. Customer, you're here. Great. Joe's Construction. Right. Okay, Joe, which job you on? Oh, I'm on the Santa Monica job. Okay, cool.
Yep.
He hits the button, and then the loader is notified that Joe is in space number 6. And so he knows which rack to go to and grab that order for the Santa Monica job. Also, the desk, the will call desk, is notified to go grab the hardware because that's in a different section. So they're grabbing that hardware and they're getting his receipt, his paperwork ready. And then they're coming out. So you got multiple people helping one customer.
Meanwhile, the meter's running.
The clock is going.
The clock's ticking.
Yep.
Okay.
The clock is ticking. So then Joe gets loaded. The pit boss then grabs the signature, on the pad and takes a photo, and then he hits the clock. Now the clock has stopped.
Okay.
So we know how long it took to load Joe for the Santa Monica job.
Mm-hmm.
There it is. There's the number of line items. There's the number of board footage, and we know how much time it took. And that data goes right into the system instantly. And you get to go look at that scoreboard. And not only do you get to look at how your team's doing, you get to look at all the will call teams throughout the company. And you get to see how many line items, how many customers, how much board footage, and then what's the time, what's the scoreboard say. And it's right there. And so these different teams, they want to learn from each other.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I didn't want to go onto a tangent, but I have to. So I will.
Go ahead.
So those teams, they'll get a monthly, what we call an incentive. They'll get a monthly incentive depending on what score they put on the board. So now you've got a team that's really working together as a team because they want to earn. They can earn up to $2.20 an hour for the entire month by hitting the score.
And not to go too far in the weeds, but how is that incentive deduced? Is it that, hey, we're going to look at everybody and you have to be more than 50%? Or is it something that, in theory, if you have an average of under 5 minutes, the entire company can qualify for this?
Yep.
How competitive is that? Because in my mind, I can be accused of being overly competitive, and I'm like, oh no, I want losers at every step of the way. Everybody can't be winners, but there's some obvious downsides to that.
Great question, because this is where I got to give Peter Ganahl a lot of credit. He's a genius. Yes, it's a competitive group, and to win, if everybody else loses, you can be a winner. But the way he's got the management team's compensation structured is we make small salaries with the opportunity to make a very large bonus. The bonus is based off of net profits for the location that you work at. You got to meet some goals, like for the will call manager, it will be like, hey, you need to run your pit stop in under 10 minutes for the year for customers to get in and out. And the other part of the bonus is based on company-wide profits. So if my guy Jake here is doing really, really well, and our buddy Frankie over in Anaheim is trying to figure out how does Jake do that?
Yep.
It is in Jake's best interest to help Frankie figure it out. And Frankie wants to ask for help because he wants his location to be more profitable. So Frankie makes more money and we all win.
Mm-hmm.
And so those groups of people, they get together monthly and they discuss what's working,
Basically,
what's not working.
People in the same roles for the pit stop at the different locations get together.
Yep,
and
they are sharing the secrets. Here's how you do it. So in that system, there's a live scoreboard. And then just to make it really cool, all those people that are involved get an email every morning with the previous day's scoreboard. And then you get a weekly recap of the scoreboard. And then you get a monthly report of the scoreboard.
Well, that's subtle. I love it.
It's fun. It's kind of like ESPN, the scores across the bottom all day long,
ticker,
right?
The ticker's always going. People are always tracking. Okay. Well, that gives me a sense of that. And I think, on one hand, this seems obvious. However, how we motivate people, how we structure compensation incentives, there are often some catastrophic unintended consequences. And by basically setting it up to where there's a natural, obvious incentive, if I'm in location A and you're in location B and we're doing the same thing, not only am I seeing how am I doing vis-a-vis you, but there's also an obvious incentive for us to collaborate, to collectively just help everyone do better so we all can win. I mean, makes a lot of sense, but again, it's, as you know.
Well, it didn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
But Peter had put in place, I'll go back to the middle of the Great Recession. So I'll say 2009 period.
Okay.
Where he put in place and he said, okay, hey, all you door and window managers, you are going to get together once a month and you are going to talk about what's working and what's not working. And all you contractor sales managers, you're going to get together once a month. All you yard managers. So there's all these different groups and we are required to get together once a month. Mm-hmm. And boy, that's created a level of trust because you get to know it. And it didn't happen overnight, like I said, but it created a level of trust. And Peter did a great job in the beginning because he facilitated all these meetings for a long period of time. And he was the one doing it. And then he stopped facilitating. But while he was facilitating, he was teaching all of us on how to facilitate. So I go back to my time then and going, wow, I'm going to be in a meeting with a dozen people and man, I might have to talk. I don't want to talk. But we learned how to talk and how to present and speak in public. And we did it all internally. And you become more comfortable and you're rooting for each other with the compensation plan. So he created those bits of energy in the different groups on how to share it. So it's turned into a powerful thing.
Yeah. Well, that again, and I think the more I study and talk to smart people about leadership and think about my own successes and failures, you kind of come back to something like that, which is, hey, I want you guys to meet. I want you to do that. That's one thing, right? And a leader can say that. Mm-hmm. And people say, oh, hey man, he's the boss. Sure, we'll do it. It's another thing to say, I'm going to facilitate this and I'm going to model this and I'm going to do this long enough to where you guys all feel confident to change your behaviors and develop these capabilities. And then I'm sliding out. I think too often leaders will fall into that trap of saying, how hard is it? I told you guys to get together and talk about your businesses and to share best practices. And then you come in, you swoop in 6 months later or a year and say, what have you guys been talking about? You guys haven't been doing, this isn't achieving what I wanted to. Well, yeah, you got to there's got to have the skin in the game and you got to invest that time, even when you have, talented people like yourself who, in theory, you know how to run a meeting. So I think that's just a great example that, and you probably have to run those meetings longer than you would even like or anticipate. But if you don't, there's going to be more variables that maybe it's not going to achieve the objective.
Yeah. Now it's rolling.
Right.
It's rolling. And everybody gets to teach everybody and learn from each other. And it's just turned into a powerful part of our culture for sure.
Got it. All right. Last question for you here. One thing that I've noticed from just kind of being with you and walking this location is that you're enthusiastic about the business. And I think that's a very attractive quality. And you probably know a lot of people that don't have it. Is enthusiasm for the business? Is that something you can teach?
I don't know if you can teach it. I think the individual just has to decide to learn it. I think as an individual, I mean, I could come to work and look at 100 things and go down to I go to the dark side real quick and just go, wow, this sucks. Because we have so many problems that we have to fix. And boy, how annoying is it to fix the same problem over and over again sometimes. But if you can learn to go, all right, we're still doing that wrong. Okay, here's an opportunity to try a different solution. Sounds really cliche or really basic, right? But yeah, enthusiasm, I guess it's contagious. Maybe that's why I do it. I don't know. I'm not smart enough to answer that question.
Well, I think you are right. I do think it is contagious because just being here, like you get excited about it and that can wane, right? You can, hey, I love this place and I love the people I work with. And I got to be honest, the last 90 days, the last 6 months have not been fun because of A, B, and C. If you don't have leaders who are enthusiastic and have a good approach and just want to bring people up and say, hey, yeah, dude, everything's not perfect, but hey, let's have some. One of our core values is a line that I was taught long ago by a guy named Bernie Pallardy. He said, fun ain't free and it never goes on sale. And I said, I love that because you got to work to make sure things are fun because there's inevitably going to be stuff that isn't fun. But if you're not enthusiastic and having fun, then you're probably doing it wrong or you're probably in the wrong space.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that. Gosh, when the salespeople are having fun when they're selling a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if they're not to sell a lot, then the operations crew has to ship a lot and the receiving has to receive a lot. And
right.
Credit has to collect a lot and everybody has to do a lot, right? But boy, when you're hitting on all cylinders and all these people have some sort of skin in the game
Mm-hmm.
and they personally get rewarded for hitting on all cylinders, wow, it gets fun around here real quick.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Got it. Well, hey, man, you've been very generous with your time. I appreciate the tour. I appreciate you making time here. And just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Bradley. Appreciate it.
All right, then, friend, how did that go? Hopefully you got a nugget or two from my conversation with Mr. Barrett Burt. If you are ever in the area, in and around LA, you got to check out that Torrance location for a couple different reasons. But I will say what they're doing with this quote unquote pit stop pickup model, it is going to change the industry. I believe as you go in the future, every single location that is successful will be doing something like this. The question is, are you going to do it in the next 12 to 18 months, or is it going to happen in 5 years, or are lumber and building material dealers not going to do this and be at a severe disadvantage? They are doing it now. They are living in the future, and they're very open to sharing their wisdom and their insights and their hard-earned lessons. So you should check them out. Of course, we are trying to make this the best podcast you listen to. So if you have ideas for topics or suggestions for improvement or guests, do not hesitate to email me directly at bradley@bradleyhartmanandco.com. And if you did receive value from this episode with Mr. Barrett Burt, please leave us a review. Those mean more to us than you know. Also, if you're not part of our distribution list for the Construction Leadership newsletter, it's free. It comes out every other week. I'm very passionate about it. We bust our ass to give you the best insights that we get from leaders like Mr. Barrett Burt and other people around the country that you can share and read in a short amount of time on your phone in the form of a newsletter. You can join for free. Go to bradleyhartmanandco.com, scroll down to the bottom of any single page, and you can register right there. And in the event that you feel I did not live up to my part and I write every single word of it, and you don't think it was worth your time and attention, you can unsubscribe with one click, but you can make darn sure I'm doing my best to deliver value, which is what we preach here. I would like to thank our presenting sponsor, The Simple Sales Pipeline, our new web application we made for you to organize and value any individual sales rep's book of business in under 30 minutes the first time. After that, it takes about 5 to 10 minutes a month so you can understand what sort of headwinds or tailwinds you're flying into the future. But as we head into these recessionary times, if you are not accurately forecasting consistently with discipline, you are flying blind, and that is sales malpractice. So don't do it. Check out thesimplesalespipeline.com. My friends, that's all we've got. I'm going to close it like we always do. You are owed nothing. Deliver value first. Make it a great week.